And here we are back in the workshop. We lost drive to this wheel on this side of the front axle. So we're going to have a look at why. I've already dropped the axle out. I'm just going to move these pieces out of the way. To save yourselves time, if you actually look at the car, and again, this is part of this is for people who haven't got too much familiarity with these kits. The axle needs to come out, and if you actually look here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 connection points really to the axle itself. However, you do not, well, in fact 11 if you include the drive shaft, because you have to disconnect the metal ones because they're joined in the middle, these type. You don't have to actually take all of that apart. All you need to do, on the front one there's an extra screw. Disconnect the drive shaft if you need to, because it's one of the metal ones. Take the screw out to disconnect the steering arm from the servo, and then just undo the 4 screws from the top of the axle. So then the whole axle unit just drops out, and if you take, once you've taken the cover off the top, if you've got a reasonably narrow screwdriver, you've got plenty of room to get down there to do that. Saves a lot of messing about, and in general I would recommend that you avoid taking these joints apart as much as possible once you've built the kit, simply because screwing into plastic isn't ideal, and the more you do it, the more risk there is of it going wrong. On a similar vein, you may be tempted to lube some of these joints. Certainly avoid any kind of wet lube or grease, because all you're really going to be doing is that's going to be acting like a sand and grit magnet. So with the whole axle assembly off, and as you can see, because this is the front axle, we've got the steering arm, so we need to now take off the cover off the back of this differential housing, although there's actually no differential in here. They talk about these kits having locked diffs. They simply have no diffs. And then the JJRC kits, which are the ones that come with diffs, people say they've got open diffs, which they kind of do technically, but at the same, that's only because they haven't been locked. They have a diff. It makes it sound like there's nothing there, was my point. It's better to have a diff and lock it than not to have a diff at all, in my opinion, because you've only got the option. These simply have none. But that keeps it nice and simple can be good, and for this application a diff would not be helping with your crawling. So we've got these 4 screws which are passing right in, holding the back of here on. The screws that hold this up into the body are also the screws that clamp the axle together. So now we've got these off, we'll take these out. Right, so with the work surface slightly raised and nothing lost, take these screws out the back of the differential housing. There's no need to take the steering arm off, there's plenty of room to do this kind of in situ. Just make sure your screws don't roll away. Right, so now we can separate these 2 halves. Right, in here we see the gears, which there is no issue with the gears at all. Let's have a little look, just make sure we've got that little bit of rubbish that's just gone on there out. That's a little bit of that paint chip. So that's all looking good. He can sit straight back in there. I use a very small amount of lube when I lube these up. The lube I use is a ceramic grease that actually comes, I'll show you, with the spare gears for airsoft guns. Every gear comes with a tube of grease. I've got hundreds of these gears. It also comes with a pack of shims, which could be handy if you need to make any adjustments in your gearbox. But this grease just stays where you put it. I've used that to upgrade hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of airsoft gearboxes, upgrade them, repair them, service them, whatever. Bring them back from the dead. Those gearboxes vary from very high torque, if you've got a really powerful string, to very high speed, and this lube works with all of them. You don't really need to worry if a little bit of water does get in here. It's not going to wash the grease away. It's not going to mess up the gears. Nothing big enough to mess up the gears is going to get in. And once you've got the metal gears, which are standard on these kits now anyway, then no. I've seen people pack these with grease, really thick grease. I think it's to keep stuff out. All I'm going to say is some of your engine power, your motor power, is then going to go simply to whisking that grease around constantly. So I think the less lube you use, the better, as long as it's staying in the right place and it's doing its job. Obviously, I'm going to re-lube it a little bit, because this was only done when it was built, when we put it back together. But anyway, let's crack on with taking this apart. We need to get the back one off. And as you saw from the paint that came off with the screws, because I painted that, it is quite a tight fit. And it's basically only this back plate now that's holding the two halves of the axle together. So he's off. So looking all good in there. We'll get that paint off of there now if we can. Right, anyway, so this now will all pop apart. So there's the hub off of there. Now our problem is, and it's this end that's got the steering arm on it, is that this will turn independently of the axle. It's come loose, so let's have a look. We'll get it off. So it's knurled. That's all that's supposed to be holding it on. And as I said, I think it may be because we're putting too much power from that 370 through these standard axles. So the upgrade by stealing the metal one out of the 44 kit may be an option. For now, I'm just gonna try, let's just try tapping it on, see if that helps at all. So I'm literally just going to use my hammer gently on the worktop just to see if that will wedge it on. There's still some movement in that one. So we're going to try a little bit of glue now. And I think we're going to put the glue in here. So I have the most generic super glue in the world. It's very fluid. I think it's 99p for 3 bottles at your friendly neighbourhood hobbycraft shop. And I'm just going to put a little bit of this in here. There you go. And we're going to whack this back on. Some of the glue is going to come out, but that's okay. We need to get this tapped in. Excuse me. Right, that is as on as that is going. And then I've got my friendly handy piece of kitchen roll, which if you're really quick will take the liquid super glue away and it won't get stuck. Maybe I'll get stuck to the kitchen roll. So there's no glue up here. I'm going to leave that to go off for a couple of minutes and then we'll just see where we are, because I don't want to mess with it yet. It feels firm, but I'll be back in a minute. Right then, so this obviously super glue doesn't really need time to cure as such, but that feels nice and solid so far. I'm obviously stronger than a 370 motor, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm going to break it before the motor does, for sure. Now, if I was a Haynes manual, I'd just say refitting is the reversal of removal. See ya, but I'm not going to do that. Let's run through it quickly. The only thing I need to remember is to make sure I remount this so that the differential housing's on the right side, and the right side is the opposite side to the side the back one's on. If you were to build this kit with both these housings on the same side of the chassis, which you easily could, the wheels will go in opposite directions, so you need to avoid that. So we've got that one over this side, that one over that side. Perfect. Now this all fits together nice and easily, and you can't get this wrong because of the way that things fit together. These are just simple bushes. I'm going to get them roughly into their positions. So he fits in there, he fits in there, he fits in there, and he fits in there. That's where they're going to live. Okay, all I'm going to do now is just pop it out, get some of my grease, move the bushings out of the way, and then put a little dab, and I mean a tiny little dab of this grease, but where the bushing is going to sit. And I think that's absolutely all the lube they're ever going to need. These can of course be upgraded with ball bearings, but I'm sure we'll be fine for now. We'll see, this may not last 5 minutes, and then we'll know that the upgrade part is what we require. So that's all looking right, is it? That's sitting where we want it to sit. Well, it's not quite sitting right here. I pushed that on too far. Right. Oh no, we got just about enough free movement there now. This one might be on a little bit tight. Let's see. I think we're just going to get away with it. If not, we'll make an adjustment. Is that going to go round? Yes. Yeah, there's no extra resistance in there. We've just got away with that. Okay, so remember, we want this way round, which means this plate is going to go over here, and the holes marry up. You can't really get this wrong. I'm going to put a little bit of lube in on the main gear, and then just spread it around with my cocktail stick a little bit. Obviously, as soon as the gears start meshing, that's going to get nicely moved around anyway. So now we do need to make sure this gear is on the right side, so it's going to be driving that gear, and again the locator pins will do the rest, and that's that. Now we put these cups on the ends, which have got the hexes on, which are then going to go through and drive the wheels. And last but not least, we're going to do this one end at a time, put the hex through there, and just clip those over there. That's the front hub. That side done. We've lost that piece. There we go. So him back through there, and then just top pin, bottom pin, all back together. All you need is his screws. So the one little tip I'm going to say you should follow here, we're going to push the screw in to where it hits the thread, and then before we start tightening this up, we're going to go backwards, and you'll feel, and you may even hear, a click there. That's the screw dropping into the thread that we've already made. I always do that. Otherwise the screw is going to be cutting a new thread potentially every time you screw it in, and that's no good. Right, so just go backwards. There you go, it dropped. Did you see that? I'll go around again, you'll see it just there. That's where you want to start tightening it up. Do them snug. You don't really need to do these stupidly tight. And on the metal axles, I have heard, and it makes perfect sense, if you over tighten these screws, you can actually mess up the running of the axle. And as I said, I'm not worried about a little bit maybe of water getting in here. It's not going to do any great harm. I have serviced airsoft guns that I've built that you can actually see the powdered twig. Well, that was a good drop. Did you hear that one? There you go. And all sorts in there. I've dropped them in rivers, I've waded through rivers, and it will mess up the barrel, the water, but it won't mess up the gearbox. Right, so that's good. All good to go. Get this back in the car. We'll leave the drive shaft till last. I'm going to take these screws out. If they'll come out. They won't come out, so that's actually fine. I was worried about them falling out. If they won't fall out, that's good. So, and we just sit that back where it needs to go. Get the steering arm out the front, out the way, so we don't trap it. And just tighten these screws back in. Again, reverse. Click, tighten. Do that with each screw. It's going to get them all started, so they're taking the weight and located correctly. Okay, we're all put back together. While I was doing all of this. I've taken this cover off the rear axle and just put a little bit more lube in there, but that was all looking good too. Now for the moment of truth. Connect the battery up. And there we go. And it was this wheel, remember, that was causing us the problem. Just check there's no wiring laying around. Right. What happens if we hold this wheel? Yeah, that's working. The tyre slipped inside the rim. I'm happy for now. I'm not going to try to hold it. As I said, I'm stronger than this machine. So doing it by hand, you're going to break it much easier than the machine. But I'm happy that is working. Yeah, that's the tyre slipping there. That's fine. I think we're done. We'll get it out for a run soon. We'll see how long it lasts, but at least we kept it going. We may need to go to the metal drive shafts in the end, but at least we're there for now. So I hope that's been a little bit useful. We'll be back soon after we've broken something else, no doubt. Take care. Leave us a like if you've liked it. Comment any ideas. How do you do this kind of thing? I'm always open to new ideas. This is just the way I've stumbled into it. So for now, take care. Subscribe if you want to know when the next video comes out, and bye bye.